Good evening. My name is Yaakov ben Shmuley. We are gathered here today to see our friend and community member Saul Baumstein into the life that is beyond this life. Saul Baumstein was a businessman, a family man, a man who wrestled with an addiction. Saul Baumstein had been an addict since the age of 13, and his drug of choice, as we all know, was bowling. It started when his parents held his bar mitzvah party here at Show Me Bowling. And he humiliated himself in front of his friends, his family, and his entire synagogue by managing to throw nothing but gutter balls. This is where gutter ball Saul was born. This is where gutter ball Saul will be laid to rest. In the gutter, where he spent much of his time. But let's reflect for a moment, shall we, on how this man came to be. Saul Baumstein lived to be 57 years of age before he died one chilly morning this past November. Saul had two wives, Penelope Papadopoulos, a goy who could pass for a Jew, and Ruthie Newman, a Jew who made Saul look like a goy. Both of whom died while Saul was trying to put a point up on the scoreboard. Saul Baumstein had fathered 3 children, one by Penny, 2 by Ruthie, but all of them were dead as well. One Saturday evening, Saul was into his 3rd game when his daughters Naomi and Rivka perished in an apartment fire. Joshua, Saul's one and only son, joined the Israeli army just shy of his 20th birthday, only to fall into a chickpea grinder while helping the kitchen staff make falafel. Saul made sure to send flower arrangements to the funerals. He was unable to attend due to his scheduling conflicts with the lane reservation at Show Me Bowling. Even Saul's basset hound, Rojo, was long gone. Saul had forgotten to feed Rojo for 5 days while participating in a bowling competition up north. When Saul had his last bowling ball made up for him, he put a picture of Rojo inside the ball as a way to remember his pet and to say how sorry he was for neglecting him. In the last few years on this earth, Saul, he stopped being a regular at shul. The last time he was in attendance, he asked me why God had bestowed such misfortunes upon him like those that befell Job. Saul thought that ever since his bar mitzvah party, Hashem had stunted his growth as a human being. His inability to knock down a single pin on the day he became a man was the first instance of bad luck that started a chain of unfortunate reactions for the rest of his life. I told Saul to come back to shul. Be a loyal Jew. Follow the laws of Judaism, and Hashem will eventually show you the path he's laid out for you. Much to my chagrin, Saul did not take my advice. He believed if he could turn his losing streak around, his life would follow in tandem. He believed it started and ended with bowling. As many of you know, Saul Baumstein never did come back to shul. Saturdays and Sundays, from the time the lanes opened, Saul Baumstein could be found here at lane 16, this very lane, the center lane, playing game after game until the manager of the alley, Lonnie Loeb, took his final shot of wild turkey behind the bar and went into the back office to stump his wife. The last time we spoke, Saul Baumstein told me that he believed that there were heavenly signs at the alley, that even angels came to Show Me Bowling. Saul told me he tried to model his technique after the alley cats that had a divine approach to the game. These were the bowlers who actually put points on the board. Clash! They were the ones who would be able to walk away proud of their skills. Clash! The bowlers who would frequently succeed at getting a strike or picking up a spare. Clash! 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 God had obviously spoken to these men and women, even if they were Gentiles and not members of the tribe. It seemed to Saul that there were many chosen people, and Saul wondered if he was paying his dues to the right union. Once Saul retired, his habit only intensified. He came here every single day. Saul Baumstein was not a greedy man. So one can only assume that at this point, he was simply trying to knock over one, if not two pins before the day was over. Yet, day after day, Saul slumped home dejected, with scorecards reading nothing but a game of zeros. Then, one November morning, Saul slid the ball along the polished slats of wood towards the 10 white figures at the end of lane 16 and clash. All the pins were knocked down with a singular collision that echoed throughout Show Me Bowling. Saul stood with one leg in the air, frozen in shock and awe at the lack of pins before him. The ball rolled back to him, and Saul picked up the heavy athletic sphere and launched it down the lane again. A repeat of the first frame played before Saul's eyes. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth frame. Saul was on the hottest streak of his life. I like to imagine that Saul had the biggest grin plastered on his face as he looked around the bowling alley, and that grin morphed into a frown when he realized no one was left to see his success. Lonnie was in the back office with his wife. Other Show Me Bowling patrons, they wouldn't arrive till the early afternoon. Everyone else he knew was dead. Saul Baumstein was bowling a perfect game, alone. Saul Baumstein knew he could not go back to the gutter after this. What does a man or woman do when they finally receive a sign from God? Do they keep their hand in the game, or do they cash out? After printing out a scorecard reading 300 on it, Saul tore the perforated edges off and folded it in his pocket. Never being one to burden others, Saul purchased a pine wood coffin at Walmart and left it in his car 5 miles downriver, just in case he needed it. Saul was 57 years of age, but he had no problem hoisting his legs over the side of the bridge that ran across the river. He was going to jump. Of that, there is no question. The only question remains is why? Did he want to end his life? Did he want to test God the way God had tested him? Did Saul believe Hashem was going to save him, or continue to plague him for the rest of his miserable existence? We might never know. I believe that on this particular morning, Saul Baumstein closed his eyes and stepped into eternity. Clash.
Shake Arky.